Hello, this is Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech number 165. I'm talking today about the top 10 cards from Fate Reforged. It's pre-release weekend. I'm doing this without having played the cards yet. I'll be playing the cards a little bit later on this weekend. If you've got any comments on this, post your own list. Let me know what mistakes I made and which ones you think should be top of the list. Let's jump right in here. The fetch lands are clearly number one. They're the best things that are being reprinted in this set, but I'm focusing on new cards. I'm super happy the fetch lands are going to be in the land spot. I hear that they're about 2 to 2.5 per box. That's unofficial, but this brings up the estimated value of a box by about $20 to $25 per box. That is huge. The small sets usually have a lot less value in them. This makes it a little bit better to pick up a box, and it really gives you those lands that you're going to need for Modern or for Legacy as another way to get them. You're not going to see foils in here. This is going to keep the foil prices high, if not push the foil prices up on the Cons foils, but it does help the average player get into Modern and get into Standard at a reasonable price. Good job, Wizards. Thanks so much on this one. Honorable mentions here were a little bit rough. I really wanted to put two of these cards in the main list. Crux of Fate is a board wipe for 5. It's a conditional board wipe, which means in the right deck, it's extremely good. But even in a deck that just needs a board wipe, it's often very, very, very strong. If there's a control deck out there that includes black, there's a very good chance that this card is going to be in there. Whispers of the Wild, I want this to be an amazing card. I hope that this is really playable. Right now, though, I don't see the ramp deck for it, so that's why it's on the honorable mention list. This is one of those cards that I would watch the foils of, pick them up really cheap, and see if they end up being playable later. Now, the Mardu Woe Reaper, I cannot pass up a 1 casting cost 2/1 with a positive effect on it. If there's an aggro deck and it's a super aggro heavy environment, this is one of those cards that can swing games back and forth between aggro decks. It is fast, it does a lot of damage, and it can gain life late game. I like it a lot. I just don't know if the deck is there or if the environment is fast enough for it. We've got a lot of mid-range decks dominating Standard right now. Going to go out on a limb here and say that these two cards that a lot of people seem to love are not that good. Temporal Trespass is super expensive. 3 blue is really, really rough. 8 on the Delve is not that difficult, especially in Modern, but 3 solid blue, that puts it up there with Cryptic Command, and you're getting rid of your entire graveyard. You're probably already a control deck, and you would likely want Dig Through Time instead. This might be a singleton, but this is not going to be a super powerful 4-of card in Modern decks or in Standard decks. Reality Shift is going to be the most controversial one here. Some of the other channels out there, including Mana Source and Tellurian Community College, have said this card is amazing. I think they're missing the manifest portion of this. This card has the chance to really come back and hit you hard. If you flip a creature with the manifest, they're just basically getting another creature to attack you with. If I'm playing an aggro deck, I want you to reality shift my little creature into something higher on the curve. I am happy to get a 2/2 to continue to attack with you. If it's a really slow, control-y, grindy, mid-rangey environment, reality shift may be decent for the 2-color blue control decks, but if it's an aggro environment, reality shift is going to be terrible. I'm avoiding this guy right now. I might trade for foils if they're reasonably priced and look amazing, but I would not go all in on this card. It may only see a little bit of sideboard play, so I'd watch out there. Number 10 spot here is going to be my most controversial. I've got Montastery Mentor here. This is number 1 on a lot of people's list and the most expensive pre-release card, or at least is up there with Ugin as of the last week. This guy is not Young Pyromancer. He's 1 more casting cost, which matters in Vintage, in Legacy, and in Modern. He also is in white, not in red. Red exploits this ability so well. White has a few cards like Path to Exile that are okay with this ability, but does not have the real damage aggro spells or even the incredible Phyrexian spells to go with it. I am going to. I think this guy will see a little bit of standard play, and the fact that he's Mythic is going to keep his price up there a ways because he's going to be a 2 of or a 3 of in the decks that he's playable in. But I would rather have Brimaz in most decks than Montastery Mentor. This is the card that I think is going to drop the most in the first 2 months. I expect to see him around 10 to 15 by middle of next month. I would avoid him at his pre-release price unless you've got a deck that really takes advantage of him. Number 9 spot here, I've got Whisperwood Elemental. This guy's perfect for mid-range. I like that he puts out additional 2/2s that could also be giant creatures that have been manifested down. The ability to keep your other creatures alive or to flip them up is really nice. I'm happy with this guy. I'm going to be trying him in some mid-range decks as a 1 of or a 2 of. The fact that he's Mythic, his price could spike up and then drop back down depending on whether or not he sees plays. I would watch this guy very closely. Number 8 spot here, I've got, who knows how to pronounce this, Yasova Dragonclaw here. This is a 4/2. In an aggro deck, you want that 4 damage. It also turns on Ferocious. So in a green-red deck, this can be very, very valuable for turning on some of the cards that are later on the list. 3 casting cost is very solid, curves out well. 2 toughness is a little bit weak. I know it's very fragile, but when it works, you're also going to be able to grab creatures from your opponent and throw them back at them. I am definitely playtesting this in a red-green aggro deck. I believe that it will see a little bit of play these first few weeks, and then kind of fade back as we move into the mid-range or control portion of the rotation. I would definitely test with it. I also really like this guy in EDH. Very, very powerful in EDH. It's going to be a nice commander. I'll be happy to pick up the foils and the pre-release foils anytime. Wild Slash. 2 damage, hits a lot of creatures, and kills them. 4 damage is great for your aggro deck. And most of your aggro decks are going to be wanting to turn Ferocious on. Pick up the foils of these early, hold on to them. If there's an aggro deck or a Boros deck that works really well, maybe even a red-green deck, this is going to be a 3 or 4 of in that deck. 4 damage to the face that can't be prevented is just incredible. Warden of the First Tree. Ooh, I've really struggled over this one. I'm a huge fan of Figure of Destiny. I like cards that are good on turn 1, and on turn 3, and on turn 5, and on turn 7. So why Green Sun Zenith is one of my absolute favorite cards. I played Maverick for a long time. Warden of the First Tree is really rough, though, on the mana. Your power-ups are not in green. With Figure of Destiny, you could put Figure of Destiny in a mono-white or mono-red aggro deck. You cannot put this in a mono-green. You can't even really put this in a green-red deck because you need the white or the black, which makes it really tough. The reason that I've got it so high on the list, though, is that third ability can be used multiple times. Your lifelink on the second ability is going to keep you in the game against aggro decks, and then you've got the ability to go over the top against those mid-range decks that are super powerful and super popular right now. So, since he's Mythic, he's going to go up in value. He will see some play in an aggro-y or mid-range deck, just because that third ability there is replayable each turn. Number 5 spot here, I've got Brutal Hordecheif. Now, I've heard a lot of people compare this to Vexing Devil. It has an upside to it, which you're gaining life. We're in a real mid-range environment right now, but there are a lot of aggro cards out there. And this is the type of card that just breaks through at the end for a last few pieces of damage, or takes a stalled board state and gives you what you need to break through it with that 5 ability. I like this guy a lot. I'm definitely trading for them at their current price with the idea that somebody is going to break it in a deck and it's going to be popular for a few weeks. Then I will want to get rid of it so that when people figure out how to stop that deck, the price drops back down. If aggro was all that was being played right now, this would be number 1 or number 2 on my list. because the life gain swing matters so much in an environment of all aggro. But we're in a mid-rangey environment, which is why it makes it to the number 5 spot. Number 4 spot here, I've got Flamewake Phoenix. I expect to see this get a lot of play in the first few weeks. Aggro decks love this. This is almost as good as Chandra's Phoenix, and in some cases better. You need something like Shaman of the Great Hunt, which I'm also putting here in this 4 spot, to turn it on. But when you're able to turn it on, you could get 2 or 3 of these out of your graveyard. Just get through those last points of damage. I really, really like this guy. Very, very happy with him. Also, people have complained that you can't block with him. If you're needed to block, your aggro plan has gone horribly, horribly wrong. This is for a super aggressive deck, not for a control deck, obviously. Number 3 spot here, I've got the Golden Fang Tazgir. In a blue-black control deck, this is going to be your win condition. This is going to be the card that is the bulwark that stops those aggro decks. Yes, it's 6 casting costs, but Delve means that this is really going to be 3 casting costs. You're going to put this out as a backstop to keep yourself alive, and then grind out the long game with that extra card advantage. I really, really like this guy. He's very inexpensive right now. I think that he will see a jump up while he's being played in Standard to that $10 or $15 range. I'm happy to pick him up at his current price. No problem. Number 2 spot here, I've got Ugin. Everybody loves a dragon. This is a giant freaking dragon planeswalker. This is the first printing of this guy. He has 2 ways to keep himself alive. Not 1, but 2 ways. I could see putting him out on the board, wiping the board, and then using the Lightning Bolt ability every turn to stifle your opponent. I can even see this seeing edge play in kind of a Legacy 12 post deck. I've been a huge fan of that deck. It's not that popular because you really need the Candelabras to go off, and very few people have a place out of Candelabras. But it is a great control, powerful card in Legacy and in Standard. It's also going to see a lot of play in EDH. This is a fan favorite. This is the type of thing that kids, new players want to see as planeswalkers. Giant dragons that can defend themselves on the board. Well done. Yes, he's a little bit high right now. If he doesn't see play the first few weeks, he's going to drop back down. I had him as a buy at the $15 to $20 range, which is what his as he was spoiled price was. Right now, I would wait for him to drop back down a little bit, but he's not going to go super far down. This guy is going to be really popular because of that casual value. Unless he ends up in a dual deck, he's going to stay at $20 plus until he rotates out, and then he's going to become the equivalent of an Eldrazi until he sees a reprint because of that casual factor. Really nice design on this guy. If there's a ramp deck, I could even see him being a powerhouse in Standard. Number 1 here, I've got Soulfire Grandmaster. This card is incredible. 2/2 Lifelinker, not bad, decent on the curve. Instants and sorceries you control have lifelink. This turns your lightning strikes into lightning helixes. This turns your lightning helixes into gain 6 life. This card will have a home in Standard, Boros aggro decks, and in modern decks. The 4 mana ability on it also gives you an eventual win condition if things stall out. It turns your lightning bolts into a reusable damage source for those stalled games. The fact that she's at Mythic is going to keep the price high also. I bought in at $15 on the pre-sale price. It's up around $30 now. After the initial rush wears off, it's going to drop back down to your $20, $25 range. That's when I would pick them up if you haven't picked them up already. But this is going to be a long-term, very popular card in multiple formats. It's a little bit too slow for Legacy, but Modern and Standard see a lot of play. I even like the idea of putting this into an EDH deck. Life gain matters, and reusable spells are wonderful in EDH. If you've got a Jeskai EDH deck, I would definitely have one of these in there. Thanks. This has been Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech. Super happy to be back in Seattle and getting some videos out. I also appreciate everybody who's over there on Patreon. I just did a vlog where I've asked people for what type of deck techs they would like to see. Head over and comment on that vlog if you have a deck tech that you would like to see coming up in February. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Take care. Enjoy your pre-release.